Did you look down one day and say, where did all this flesh come from? I did. At 60 years old, I was feeling bloated, exhausted, and embarrassed that I couldn't figure out this in my own body. So I dug into my yoga therapy resources and created a protocol called mindful eating. Welcome to the Midlife Reset Podcast, episode number 50. I'm Cheryl Gordon, creator of the She Mindfulness Program and guide to hundreds of women like us who want to feel leaner and sleep better and get stronger. By the end of today's episode, you'll have a few solid answers about where that menopause belly came from and some simple fixes that you can start right now. So let's dive in. We're not alone. So many of my clients come to me frustrated about that menopause weight, especially the stubborn belly that seems to appear overnight and refuses to budge. And I totally get it. It's confusing and demoralizing because what worked in our 30s just doesn't work the same way anymore. I mean, for years, the messaging in my own mind was just harsh and judgmental. I would beat myself up because I was snacking too much. I would push myself to do harder and longer cardio. But here's the first big myth that we really need to bust. And I want to shout this from the rooftops. Midlife weight gain isn't just about eating less and moving more. It's about changing hormones and how our metabolism is shifting. That's why going on diets that punish or restrict or cut out whole food groups just don't work long term. And that's why joining a CrossFit class results in more injuries than weight loss. That's why it seems everyone else can eat the fun stuff, but you're forced to suffer with celery sticks and dry chicken breast. Girlfriend, we need a new way to interact with food. Even dieting and our lives we have to change all of this. Now, here's why we have to change it. Guess what? We're going to talk about estrogen, but stick with me. One of my teachers compares estrogen to like a mom in a family. You know how the household works really well because mom makes all the lunches, she remembers all the appointments, she cleans all the toilets, but then mom gets sick and the house goes to shit. Now, it's not the house's fault. It's because the working dynamic in the house was disproportionately relying on mom. Now, when we pulled mom out of the game or her performance was reduced, all the other systems in the house collapsed. It's not mom's fault. And that's kind of like the role estrogen has been playing for us all the way through our youth. When we were in our 30s, it was doing all kinds of stuff. Maybe we relied on it a little bit too much. Remember how we were burning the candle at both ends back in those days? I mean, we got away with it, right? But as you get older, estrogen starts to decline. Mom can't do all that she used to do. In my case, estrogen kind of like bottomed out overnight. So the working systems all went to shit, quite frankly. And that's why it seems the bottom falls out of sleep. We start gaining weight. Where's our energy? Our joints start hurting overnight. I can't remember anything. The fog in my brain is crazy. There's a long list you can look up anywhere and see all these different symptoms of perimenopause and menopause. That is the dropping estrogen. That is because mom went on strike. So as the sex hormones decline, our fat patterns change. Where we store fat changes. The body does, and it's true, this is science, the body becomes more inclined to hold weight. And yes, around the midsection. And at the same time, our insulin sensitivity decreases. I did an episode, number 46, a couple weeks back. I'll put a link to this in the show notes. And I give you a really clear picture of the role of insulin and insulin sensitivity in weight, but I won't go into it here. It just means that blood sugar spikes more easily and crashes become more common as we get older, which fuels things like cravings. So it's really hard to say no to the yummy cupcake or the bag of potato chips. And the way we store fat changes. Now we add higher cortisol. You've heard about cortisol. It's a stress hormone. It's the stress hormone that's released during chronic stress, not that jolt of adrenaline that we first get when we almost get hit by a car or something. This is the little engine that could constantly pumping out. I know something's not quite right. I'm not quite measuring up. I'm going to drop the ball. You know that? That's the chronic stress hormone I'm talking about. This tells your body you need to store fat for protection. It's a natural thing. Your body's trying to do what it's done for eons to protect the human species. So you combine the excess cortisol, which is real when you're in menopause, with a natural decline in muscle mass. This happens. And suddenly your metabolism is operating at a completely different speed than it used to. And this isn't your fault. You haven't dropped the ball. This is physiology. This is science. You know what really doesn't help right now is beating yourself up. Just like our poor overworked mom in my example who got sick, you can't help it. We're getting older. I know everybody likes to pretend the 80 is the new 40, but it's not. We are getting older. Our systems are aging. And this is not a failure. It's an invitation to get wiser, my friend. But I was beating myself up for not exercising enough or for not cutting out all the carbs. I mean, this is the stuff we see on social media. We can stay young forever. It's your job to stay fit. And I hope I'm not contributing to that overly because I know how vulnerable we can be to that messaging. So here's the good news. You're not stuck, and it's not impossible to get back on track. Midlife weight gain isn't inevitable. Once you understand how your hormones and metabolism are shifting, then you can start making some proactive changes, small, strategic adjustments. These things work with what's going on in your body instead of expecting it to be 35 again. And I know this is not just because the research supports it or some expert told me, but because I've proved it to myself in my own body. I'm 62 as I record this. I'll be 63 in a few months. And I'm feeling stronger and leaner than I did actually in my 30s. And it wasn't because of a magic diet or a supplement or, killer workouts. This is because I followed the advice of the experts, finally, out of desperation, to be honest. One of the most important principles here is this: trying to change everything at once is counterproductive. Sustainable change happens sequentially in manageable steps. If all of this sounds interesting to you, but it's like, I wouldn't know where to start, and I read all this stuff. I know the right things to do, but I don't know how to put it into place in my life for my situation. I would really like to invite you to look into the She Mindfulness program. This is the protocol I put together as I was figuring out my metabolism in my 60s. It really worked for me to lose the weight, to sleep better, to feel stronger, and I would love to support you in your journey. So I'll put the link in the show notes so you can learn more about that program. But I really wanted to talk today about some simple things that you can do right now without signing up for another program or another class. Try these things out. And if these things start to work for you, maybe you'll think that this has got some more merit and you'll do some more investigation. We have to set some realistic goals. We have to be kinder to yourself and we have to cultivate patience. Those were really big steps for me. That's why I needed an organized program like the She Mindfulness program. But those are basic things: setting realistic goals, being kinder to yourself, and cultivating patience. But I want to give you some things that you can do right now, practical things. Try them, and then maybe the bigger picture is time for you to tackle that. So I know you've heard all about protein, but it is my number one recommendation. But I'm going to get specific. This is a message that we really need, girlfriend. We need to understand it, not just get a bunch of hype about it. One of the biggest metabolic game changers for midlife women is prioritizing protein. And I'll just explain briefly why. As we age, muscle mass naturally declines, which slows our metabolism and makes fat storage, especially around the belly, more likely. Blah, blah, blah. You've heard that before. Protein helps preserve muscle. You can't, even if you're strength training, if you don't have the raw material to rebuild those muscles, you're not going to get that muscle mass. So we need protein to build the muscle. Muscle is a big sink for glucose in your blood. So it stabilizes your blood sugar. You have less insulin resistance. It will help reduce your cravings. It will support you with sustained energy so you don't have those ebbs and flows throughout the day. And of course, because it takes longer to digest, it's in your system longer, you're not constantly battling hunger. You have more sustainability with what you're eating. Very generalized advice. You'll want to talk to a nutritionist for something really more specific for you, but 25 to 30 grams of protein per meal. This varies by individual, but here's an example. You might take 3 eggs at breakfast with some whole grain toast. That will get you very close to 25 grams, especially if you put a nut butter on your toast. At lunch, you want to have some salmon, maybe some chicken with some whole grain rice, something like that, lots of veggies. That could get you close to it. At dinner, you could look at lentil, vegetable bowl with some nuts or seeds, maybe a bit of feta. That could get you close to it. So every meal prioritizing that fiber, that protein, those good fats. An advanced strategy is to rotate your protein sources because our bodies need a variety of amino acids. And I do see a lot of women falling into a trap where they have the same thing for the meal every day. So rotating, this is where food planning can be really helpful. And I cover that in the She Mindfulness program. It's a big part of mindful eating. Breakfast is really key for protein too. I don't know about you, but I did years of intermittent fasting where I didn't eat breakfast, really screwed up my natural hunger signals. A lot of my clients report just not feeling hungry first thing in the morning. They're in a rush to get on with the day. But if you want to set up for a really hot metabolic day, your system needs that breakfast reassurance for so many reasons. Some of us will do well, maybe with a protein smoothie and a couple eggs, fairly light, fast, but it's important to remember protein at breakfast. And that 25 to 30 grams, not a piece of toast and butter. That's not going to cut it. So instead of focusing on eating less, focus on eating smarter. But okay, nutrition isn't the whole picture. I want to move on to my second recommendation beyond protein, and that's about your muscle. For me, I was already doing yoga every day. I was doing all the meditation. I love to hike and bike and that sort of thing. But joint pain caught me completely off guard and it made me kind of nervous to move. I worried that, one wrong move in Zumba class could throw out my back and I'd be off work for a couple weeks. So as muscle mass declines, we do become more susceptible to injury. That's the reality. And that fear can create a vicious cycle where we move less, we lose strength, we feel old far too soon. And what many women don't realize is that estrogen plays a regulating role in nearly all our musculoskeletal tissues, our bone, our muscle, our tendons, our cartilage, our ligaments, our fascia, even our fat tissue. So the drop in estrogen that begins in perimenopause is often the catalyst for widespread aches and stiffness. In fact, the musculoskeletal syndrome of menopause has only been coined in the last decade, and it affects about 70% of women. Yet when 70% of us go to our doctors and we say we've got knee pain, shoulder pain, back pain, and we run some imaging like x-rays or MRIs, we look fine in those pictures. There's no diagnosis. And so we're told it's in our heads, or simply this is what's getting old like, girlfriend. Meanwhile, the scales creeping up, the pressure to exercise even more, do more Ks or more reps increases. It's a perfect storm for frustration. And then our cortisol goes up. You heard me talk about that before. We need to move smarter, my wise friend. Now, I'll link back in the show notes to episode 19. I explain why the cardio we all thought would give us these really toned and fit bodies just doesn't. And I'll link to episode 36 in the show notes, and that explains what building muscle really looks versus just lifting a couple weights. And here's why you should care. Listen to those episodes. It's really important information for you to have. So, yes, strength training is something I really want you to adopt, but right away, you can build your non-exercise activity levels. This is something I didn't know about before I started doing a deep dive. Fitness people don't talk about this because they want you to buy their exercise program, right? But there's a way you can really generate a lot more calorie burn each day just by moving about. Go for a walk with the dog, haul your laundry up the stairs, waving your hands around while you talk. This kind of movement you can do safely and easily, even if you have some injuries or some joint pain. I would love to hook you up with my free joint freeing series videos. They come included with the She Mindfulness program, but I also have them as a standalone because so many of my clients need them. I've been using them for decades. I'll link in the show notes to how you can get the free version. This is a series of simple flexibility exercises. I even have a version you can do in bed. But all that basic movement counts as non-exercise activity thermogenesis. It's about 15% of your calorie burn every day. So if your joints already hurt and exercising doesn't feel more supportive right now, it just adds more stress to an already overloaded system. So you can try the joint free, very gentle, but it does count towards calorie burn. I don't know if your watch will tell you that though. Now, which brings me to my third and final point. And we talked about cortisol before, so you know how insidious this is. And I could talk for weeks about what it's doing to our systems as we age. But let's just focus on this. We got to get serious about managing our stress. One of the biggest turning points for me was realizing, that the stress, that chronic stress, was actively hoarding the belly weight. Yep, it's true. It's science. Cortisol is your body's main stress hormone for that chronic, I'm falling behind. I'll never understand. I won't get it all done. That I'm late, that stress. It's not when you're going to get hit by a bus. It's that chronic day to day, never really dies down. And when cortisol is elevated from work, from stress, poor sleep, huge stressful thing for your body, skipping meals or not eating enough calories. Haven't we all done that trying to lose weight? That boosts your cortisol, girlfriend. And even over exercising, these people that are pushing to do 2, 3, 4, 5 hours of exercise a day, totally non-productive for our goals of losing weight. Your body goes into survival mode, and this means holding on to fat, especially around the belly. It's going to slow your digestion and go into energy conservation mode, which means we don't want to burn any of our fat stores because there's a catastrophe out there. We're in survival mode, right? Did you know that just one night of poor sleep can increase your blood sugar levels the next day, regardless of how healthy your diet was? So it's very influential. And insulin problems reveal themselves in that little Buddha belly. You know, you're having all this cortisol insulin interaction if you have menopause belly. And here's the kicker. Even if you're eating well and high cortisol levels can interfere with digestion and nutrient absorption. So food can start making you feel heavy, bloating increases, energy crashes and cravings. Ever notice how your belly feels like 5 months pregnant by the end of the day? That is your stress. If you've been thinking, oh, I got to go gluten-free, or I got to cut out soy, or I can't have salads after 5, all these different things that I hear my friends talking about, my clients worrying about, it is the digestion. It is the stress. Chances are you can eat those things and go back to just having a regular diet if we deal with this problem. So stress itself isn't the enemy. Even yoga teachers experience stress. It's what gets us out of bed and keeps us organized in our lives. The problem is that chronic, wearisome stress that feels uncontrollable. Now, here's the good news. Cortisol can be lowered naturally. You want to look at balanced meals, slowing down when you eat, taking some nice deep breaths before you start eating, prioritizing your sleep and rest, and just bringing therapeutic or non-sleep deep rest into your life. I talk about that a lot on this podcast. These things can make a profound difference. They have to me. For many driven and capable women, one of the most radical acts of self-care is prioritizing your comfort and safety. I mean, we've had decades of making sure everyone else was fed and happy and okay. And we're quietly starving for nurturing. We're starving. I had to relearn how to celebrate small wins. I had to prove to my nervous system that I mattered. I had to move away from coping strategies like wine, sugar, retail therapy, none of which truly nourished me. I was still starving inside. Rest is essential for weight loss. So are supportive relationships, boundary setting, asking for what you need, being fully present for moments in our lives. These aren't luxuries. These are foundations. Okay, we've covered a lot today, so let's recap. First, prioritize protein. Aim to include your healthy fats and fiber every time you open your mouth to eat. Second, build muscle instead of burning calories. Excessive cardio can raise cortisol and break down muscle. So we want to talk about strength training and we want to talk about walking, which are far more effective for hormone balance and metabolism. And try my joint freeing series. That might really help get your confidence back up for trying some strength training and walking. And third, you want to support your nervous system. That chronic stress tells your body to store fat and it disrupts your sleep, which creates even more stress. So simple practices like breathing, slowing down, sleeping, allowing time for sleep matter more than you think. So midlife weight management isn't about eating less and just exercising more. Calories in, calories out. And your body isn't broken. It's always working for you. The key is understanding what it needs now and learning to work with it instead of fighting it. When you do that, everything gets easier. So beyond the joint freeing videos, which I'll link in the show notes, and they are free, and they can really help with that middle piece there. I also have a free guide to mindful eating. It's the basics, and I can send that to you. So those links are in the show notes. But if you are feeling like you really want to tackle all these issues in a systematic way, I want to really encourage you to look at the She Mindfulness program. It's all online, so you go at your own pace, and it will help you reset from the ground up. Learning tools to eat mindfully, how to exercise smarter, how to rest more soundly, how to practice more soul-satisfying self-care. And you won't be doing this alone. We have a lively community. We have a private social page, and then we have our weekly group calls where we get to meet each other, set up accountability buddies. You know, you really do belong with us. If you've been listening to this podcast, you're on the same page. So why not learn more as you finish listening? Check out that link in the show notes and get going on some of these resources. If any of this resonated with you, please share this with a friend. We have a lot of women out there who need to hear this information, and I would love to hear from you. So send me a message and we'll chat. Talk soon. Hey, girlfriend, if you're really enjoying this podcast, and I sincerely hope you are, would you consider booking a call with me? I mean, I melted off the menopausal weight. I got my strength and energy back at 60 years old, and now I'm trying to help hundreds of women feel stronger, happy, and more energized with my She Mindfulness program. This is what you already know from yoga, organized into a deceptively simple, step-by-step protocol. For a short time, you're invited to book a free 30-minute consult where we can figure out together if the She might work for you to help you sleep better, feel more fit, and boost your mood. Click on the link now, and we'll talk soon.